Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Friday, January 3rd, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a pleasant high of 71.2 degrees, with a low of 54.3, making it a beautiful winter day in Southern California. Coming up, we'll examine why investigators have been unable to identify the DC pipe bomber, despite years of investigation and surveillance footage. We'll also look into the controversy surrounding Apple's $95 million settlement over Siri's voice recordings and user privacy concerns. Plus, we'll explore the fascinating ways that abandoned agricultural land is transforming global ecosystems, and what this means for our planet's future. All this and more, coming up on Alex's News. We begin this morning with new developments in the investigation of pipe bombs planted in Washington, D.C. 4 years ago. The FBI has just released fresh video footage in their ongoing search for answers. Joining us now with the details is our correspondent Ethan Parker. Ethan, bring us up to speed on this investigation.
Thanks, Grace. According to NBC Washington, the FBI has just released new video evidence related to pipe bombs that were placed near both the Democratic and Republican National Committee headquarters on January 5, 2021. Despite 4 years of intensive investigation, this case remains unsolved.
What do we know about the suspect from this new footage?
CBS News reports that the suspect is believed to be approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall. Though their gender remains unknown, they were captured on surveillance, wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, face mask, black gloves, and what's become a crucial piece of evidence: a distinctive pair of Nike Air Max Speed Turf shoes in black and gray with a yellow logo.
Those shoes sound like they could be an important lead. Do we know how common they are?
That's right, Grace. According to the FBI's investigation, fewer than 25,000 pairs of these specific shoes were sold between August 2018 and January 2021, making them relatively rare. The Bureau has even created an animated rendering of the shoes to help the public identify them.
Can you walk us through the timeline of events that evening?
The Associated Press reports that the suspect placed the first bomb near the DNC at 7:54 p.m., then planted the second one behind the RNC at 8.
And there were some high-profile individuals in the area during this time, correct?
Yes, that's particularly troubling, Grace. Then, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris was actually inside the DNC when one of the bombs was discovered, and Nancy Pelosi's motorcade passed through the area before the devices were deactivated. The FBI has noted that these discoveries also diverted crucial resources from responding to the Capitol riot the next day.
What's the status of the investigation now?
The FBI's Washington field office has been thorough in their pursuit. They've assessed over 600 tips, reviewed approximately 39,000 video files, and conducted more than 1,000 interviews. They're currently offering a $500,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction, and they've collected over 105 million data points in their investigation.
Thank you for that comprehensive update, Ethan. We'll be sure to keep our viewers informed of any developments in this ongoing investigation. We turn now to a major development in tech privacy news. Joining us to discuss a significant settlement from Apple regarding its virtual assistant Siri is our tech correspondent Chloe Martinez. Chloe, what can you tell us about this settlement?
Thanks, Grace. According to court documents filed in Oakland Federal Court, Apple has agreed to pay $95 million to settle a class action lawsuit over privacy concerns with its Siri virtual assistant. The lawsuit alleged that Siri was recording users' private conversations without their consent.
What specifically were users claiming in this lawsuit?
Well, as reported by NPR, users claimed that Siri would activate and record conversations even without anyone saying, "Hey Siri," the phrase that's supposed to trigger the assistant. These recordings were then allegedly reviewed by human contractors for quality control, which many users weren't aware was happening.
And what kind of compensation can affected users expect?
According to KTVU Fox 2 News, eligible users can receive up to $20 per device, with a maximum of 5 devices per consumer. It's worth noting that of the $95 million settlement, about $29.6 million will go to attorney's fees.
What do users need to do to qualify for this settlement?
The Detroit News reports that users need to have owned Siri-enabled devices between September 17, 2014 and December 31, 2024. They'll need to attest under oath that Siri accidentally activated during private conversations. Interestingly, experts expect only 3 to 5% of eligible consumers will actually file claims.
Has Apple made any changes to address these privacy concerns?
Yes, they have. Since October 2019, Apple has suspended and revised its human grading program, implemented an opt-in requirement for audio recording reviews, and now doesn't retain audio recordings by default. They've also deleted all recordings made before October 2019 and enhanced user controls over Siri settings.
When will this settlement be finalized?
The settlement requires approval from U.S. District Judge Jeffrey White, with a court hearing scheduled for February 14, 2025. That's 42 days from now. However, it's important to note that throughout this process, Apple has denied any wrongdoing.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Chloe. We'll be sure to keep our viewers updated on any developments in this story. Here are some other headlines. South Korea's impeached president remains defiant after an hours-long standoff with investigators who attempted to serve a warrant at the official residence. The president managed to avoid immediate arrest as investigators ultimately left without making an apprehension. In college football, controversy erupted during the Peach Bowl quarterfinal between Texas and Arizona State, when a potential targeting penalty went uncalled. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark has called for national standards on targeting calls after the incident, which may have affected the game's outcome. Texas went on to win 39-31 in double overtime. Ghana has granted citizenship to 524 members of the African diaspora, mostly Black Americans, in its largest such ceremony to date. The initiative, part of Ghana's Beyond the Return program, has attracted many seeking to escape racial tensions in the United States, with some recipients already establishing businesses in the West African nation. A tragic New Year's Eve fireworks explosion in Hawaii killed 3 women and injured more than 20 people when a lit bundle of aerial fireworks tipped over and ignited nearby crates. The incident has sparked renewed debate about the state's fireworks culture and enforcement of existing regulations. As we mark 5 years since COVID-19's emergence, scientists continue studying its origins while grappling with long COVID effects. The pandemic has claimed over 7 million reported deaths globally, though actual numbers may be 3 times higher. While vaccines have proven effective, the virus continues to evolve, with regular boosters needed to maintain protection. And now for our third story of the morning. A fascinating global trend is reshaping our landscapes as farmers increasingly abandon their agricultural lands. Joining us to discuss this phenomenon is our environmental correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, what can you tell us about the scale of this agricultural abandonment?
Grace, this is truly a massive shift we're witnessing. According to WCMU Public Radio, since 1950, farmers have abandoned an area of land equivalent to half of Australia. In the United States alone, NPR reports that over 30 million acres of arable land have been left unused since the 1980s. The trend is particularly striking in Eastern Europe, where countries like Latvia have seen up to 42% of their farmland abandoned since 1988.
Those are staggering numbers, Ethan. What happens to these abandoned farms? Does nature simply take over?
That's exactly what's happening in many cases, Grace. According to research compiled by Perplexity API, about 50% of abandoned farmland becomes grassland or pasture, while 20% transitions to shrubland, forest, or wetlands. What's particularly interesting is that only about 8% specifically converts to wetlands, and less than 20% gets enrolled in formal conservation programs.
And how is wildlife responding to these changes?
The wildlife response has been remarkable. Organizations like Rewilding Europe, which operates in 10 different regions, have documented the return of numerous species. We're seeing roe deer, ibex, and wild boar returning to these areas. However, it's not all positive news. NPR's reporting indicates that some traditional farming landscapes are being lost, and certain species that depend on managed farmland, particularly European meadow butterflies and specific bird species, are actually declining.
Looking ahead, what can we expect to see in the coming years?
According to current projections from the European Union, We're looking at an additional 4.2 million hectares of agricultural land being abandoned between now and 2030. That's just 5 years from now. Experts like Henrique Pereira from the German Center for Integrative Biodiversity Research suggest we should view these changes as opportunities to create wilder, more natural landscapes rather than seeing them as purely negative developments.
Thank you, Ethan, for that comprehensive overview of this global transformation in our agricultural landscapes. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.